allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And first up, I wanted to welcome Maddie, and I'm going to say your name wrong, Tyson.
Yes.
Thank you. Our new school board rep for the 2015-16 year, so welcome.
Thank you.
And the roll call tonight, all members are present. And then for the agenda this evening, I've asked that it be amended with adding a 2015-16 preliminary levy certification update, which is a report only, and then also remove the closed session at the end. Do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
By Dan, second.
I'll second the motion.
By Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next up is the consent agenda. And these items are considered routine in nature, and they will be reenacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion on these items unless it's requested. And on tonight's consent agenda is the check wire transfer disbursement summary, the approval of the school board minutes from the regular board meeting on August 24th, resignations, terminations, non-renewals as listed. And do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Todd, second.
Second.
By Chad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0 as well. And then the resolution for the acceptance of gifts on tonight. I think we have something.
There's one.
There's one? Okay. So for that, okay, thank you. Whereas the following generously have offered to donate money to Prior Lake Savage area schools, the annual school supply drive donation from Fairview Ridges Hospitals. Do I have a motion to accept the gifts as listed?
So moved.
By Ben, second.
Second.
By Dan, and this is a roll call.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rich?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Okay, another 7-0. Okay, next up is Laker Pride, and we have a special recognition tonight of our Lakers Showcase, the Lakefront Music Fest folks, and also the PAA and the Laker Athletic Booster reps, I think, are here tonight.
Excellent. Well, we are delighted this evening to welcome the president of the Prior Lake Rotary, Joe Doles, and the co-chair of the Lakefront Music Fest, Dan Stanley, with us this evening. We are celebrating tonight an absolutely amazing event in our community, for our community and for surrounding communities. We celebrate the partnership that we have with the Lakefront Music Fest, and we certainly are incredibly grateful and thank you for the generous support and this year as well, in a way that truly impacts our community. So much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Prior Lake Rotary, we are very pleased to be able to distribute this check to your organizations. One of the important reasons why we put on the Lakefront Music Fest, so we can raise money to help worthy organizations like the Prior Lake Savage School Districts, LABC, and PAA. Rotary Club of Prior Lake is pleased to partner with these wonderful community organizations through Music Fest and donating to and supporting other programs. We just stepped it up this year, and as a result, we're distributing this check for $45,720 to your groups.
Next up is the open forum, and this is a 15-minute time period set aside to receive citizen input through this open forum segment. Is there anyone wishing to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none. Personnel items. Matt.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Stallo, and welcome, Ms. Tyson. To start us out here, I recommend the following candidates for employment, and I'm seeking board approval.
Okay, do I have a motion for acceptance of the candidates for employment?
So moved.
By Todd, second.
Second?
By Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
And next I present the retirement of Sally Davis. And a quick word there. Ms. Davis has been with the district for 25 years, working in our Spanish department at the high school. And we wish her the very best here as she moves forward into this next stage.
Do we have a motion to approve the district retirement?
So moved.
By Ben, second.
Second?
By Chad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0 as well.
And next I present the following leaves of absence, and I'm seeking board approval.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the leaves of absence as listed?
So moved.
By Melissa, second.
Second?
Ben, by Ben. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0 as well.
All right, and next up, we've got 3 job descriptions, or I'm sorry, no, we've got a staffing request coming first. We have a staffing request in 3 separate areas. First of all, at Five Hawks Elementary, we're requesting 2 additional student support paraprofessionals whose assistance is dictated by IEP at that site. We're looking for a 0.5 addition at the high school to the instrumental music advisor stipend, and that will allow both of our full-time band directors at the high school to be able to participate in marching band and all of the other activities and performances that they put on at the high school. And lastly, we're looking for a choreography advisor. I was explaining to Rich Wolf before the meeting that although this says 1.0, this is not a 40-hour-a-week position. This is simply an advisor position, although if we did hire a 40-hour-a-week choreographer, we could really make some magic happen with the Seussical. So we will certainly consider that for the future. But in the meantime, that's our last request, is that we have a choreographer for the fall musical. We've traditionally had a choreographer for the spring musical. However, as I said previously, they will be endeavoring to present the Seussical, which has a great deal of dance involved.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the educational support staffs as listed?
So moved.
By Todd, second.
I will second the motion.
By Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. And next up is approval of...
Yes, so now I have 3 job descriptions for approval this evening, and we in the HR department can admit our mistakes, and so there were some errors on these, some small errors on these job descriptions that we approved actually during our last regular session. We're bringing them back for approval tonight in their finished form.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the revised job descriptions as listed?
So moved.
By Melissa, second.
Second.
By Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0 as well. Old business, none. And then on to new business, and it's MCA results.
Yes,
presentation.
good
Yeah.
evening, Chair Ruel, members of the board, Dr. Stallo. I'm just going to be doing an introduction this evening. District Curriculum Coordinator Amy Jonke and District Assessment Coordinator Maggie Ekram will be presenting to the board a report on our MCA results. They'll be talking a little bit about the proficiency that proficiency scores that were sent out several weeks ago. You received that in a memo format, but they'll be presenting an overview of comparisons to neighboring and high-performing districts, as well as talking about how our students did on the MMR, multiple measurements rating, and the focus rating, which includes looking at achievement gap, growth, and looking at student subgroup performance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jonke and Ms. Ekram.
Good evening, Chair Ruel, members of the school board, and Dr. Stallo. We're here to present an overview of assessment data for the district. Our goal is to provide more detail, context, and some next steps for that data. In a nutshell, Prior Lake Savage Area School students continue to perform very well on state assessments. All subjects last year in the spring were administered online, math, reading, and science. And we're going to give you a quick overview of the reading, math, and science proficiency data. This is the same information that was on the memo you received in August. First, we have reading scores. These are proficiency percentages, so the percent of students that met or exceeded state standards. Students in grades 3 through 8 and in grade 10 take this test. And one thing I want to highlight is the difference between the state and our district, which is in this far column. The column on the far right is the difference between the district and the state. Our students continue to outperform their statewide peers in reading by anywhere from 10.6% up to 18.5%. We want to continue that growth. Last year's fifth graders as a cohort grew 11.1% from 68.1% up to 79.2%. So that group as a cohort grew 11.1%, which is a tremendous amount of growth we should be proud of. In looking at math scores, students in grades 3 through 8 again, and this time high school grade 11 took the math test. Again, we are outperforming our state peers by 15.4% up to 25%. So big gains there. Seventh grade is an area of celebration. If you look on the far right column, they are outperforming state peers by 25%. We recognize that there is a cohort decrease from fourth grade to fifth grade. There's 10.6% decrease.
Good evening. Overall, our students continue to do well in math. That said, we do find the decrease of the cohort from fourth to fifth grade significant. Unfortunately, I should say, instead of interestingly, this is our second consecutive year where we've had a math decrease of that cohort that's going from fourth to fifth grade. We started to address that last year in refinement and further development with our common summative assessments at that grade level, but with this being the second consecutive year where we've noticed that drop, we're going to be looking very closely at the strand data and probably also looking at our data on our map, our NWA map scores, to see if their strand data also aligns with the MCAs, so we could double check those scores and see how students are performing on both assessments. Future work in this area will be to pinpoint areas of the curriculum that we could enhance so that we don't see that dip moving forward.
Next is science. Again, proficiency percentages. Science is taken by 5th graders, 8th graders, and 10th graders. The difference between district and state continues to be an area of celebration. Students outperform their state peers by 10.3 to 25.7%. 8th grade in particular is an area of celebration with a 25.7% increase above the state average. An area for further investigation is 5th grade scores. If you look at 2014 and 2015 in the first two columns, there is a difference of 12.2%. Although this is not a cohort of students, it's still something that we recognize as being significant.
Our high science scores are evidence of our continued commitment in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools to environmental education and E-STEM. Students in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools have multiple opportunities from which to complete their understanding of the 4 areas of science. This includes not only their opportunities with environmental education, but also our National Geographic curriculum, our Fab Lab, and our district partnerships with Richardson Nature Center, the Jeffers Foundation, along with many others.
Our science committee and the departments and our science departments at the secondary level are working on towards common summative assessments. As Maggie mentioned, an area of focus this year will be that fifth grade, those test specs, and our curriculum alignment to them. We'll want, although this isn't cohort data, we're not watching the same group of students go from year to year. We definitely want to pay attention to a significant drop like that. Next, we'll move on to discuss comparisons to surrounding districts. First, we have reading. As you can see, the Prior Lake Savage Area Schools proficiency rate is 73.5%. As a district, we had an increase of 1.3% overall in reading. We'd like to continue to see the student achievement grow so that we can be more closely aligned with some of those top districts in the graph in front of you. As we move forward with the school year, I'll continue to work with our elementary curriculum specialist, Patty Green, and our secondary curriculum specialist, Jill Kind, to support teachers with English language arts, including reading. Our areas of focus this year at the elementary will be our reading units of study, our supplementary reading curriculum that we're utilizing at the elementary level during Reader's Workshop. And at the secondary level, it'll be common summative assessments by course. Moving on to math comparisons. As you can see, Prior Lake Savage is at 79.3% proficiency. Again, this puts us right in the top with our neighboring high-performing districts. We have had a 0.4% increase in the area of math over the past year. This is where we want to be. Last year and this year we have performed with our top performing, high performing neighboring school districts. That said, our work continues as we continually seek to support all learners. This year I'll work with Patty and Jill, our curriculum specialists. In the areas of math, we'll be focused on differentiation at the elementary level. We'll be talking about how can we meet individual learners' needs within the classroom setting. And also at the secondary level, we'll continue with the common summative assessments by course in mathematics, and then take it a step further in how can we use this data to improve our instruction. And then we have science. Our proficiency rate there was 70.7%. This represents a decrease of 2.3% from 2014 to 2015. We continue to perform with our neighboring high-performing districts in science. That said, our dip in our fifth grade proficiency scores in this year certainly had an impact on our overall district proficiency. I'll be pulling together a group of administrators and fifth grade teachers to take a closer look at all of our strand data for science. We'll look at our strand data for this year and previous years so we can identify areas of the curriculum that we can enhance those lessons. There's a very strong possibility that we're teaching things very well. We just need to teach more of it. And then we'll move on to multiple measurement rating and focus rating data. You've seen this definition every year, but just to review, MMR and FR data are used in place of AYP because Minnesota has a waiver. So we use this measurement system instead of the AYP system. It's more advantageous because it looks at 4 different domains. So we look at proficiency, achievement gap reduction, we look at growth, and we look at graduation rate for the high schools. Basically, each building will end up with a percentage based on how they do in each of those 4 domains. The focus rating is very similar to the multiple measurement rating. It combines proficiency data and achievement gap reduction data for those groups that traditionally have an achievement gap. So they're listed on the screen in front of you. There are 7 subgroups that we look at. There are, again, this is the same as we've talked about previously, 5 different designations that the Department of Education gives to schools depending on their MMR and FR data. The top 2, the reward school designation and the celebration status designation, are historically what Prior Lake Savage schools have had. So for last year, our designations for Westwood, Red Tail Ridge, Greenwood, and Five Hawks are on the screen. This designation only applies to Title I schools. Westwood is in its 3rd year as a reward school. Red Tail Ridge, its 4th year as a reward school. Greenwood, 4th year as in a celebration eligible school. And Five Hawks was 3 years as a celebration eligible school, and last year it's now a reward school. So that's a major celebration. Here we have current and historical MMR scores. Just to reiterate, when we look collectively with MMR, everyone is performing very well, whether or not they're a Title I school. The red line signifies a change in how MDE calculates MMR and FR information. And one thing that Prior Lake Savage has traditionally done well in is proficiency domain. We've traditionally had very high scores in that area. Our next steps include closer examination of data to look at subgroups and pinpoint areas of reading and math and science that these groups of students need help with. Here we have current and historical focus rating scores. The focus rating really zooms in on the achievement gap for those students that are in the 7 subgroups we spoke about earlier. It combines proficiency information and achievement gap reduction information into a percentage that lets us know how we're doing in that aspect.
It's important to note that our MMR and FR data is really, it provides us with a 1,000-foot view. We analyze this data along with local district assessments such as NWA MAP, Ames Web, our Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessments, and to pinpoint precise instructional areas for further development. But this does provide us with a nice global picture. We conclude tonight with highlighting our next steps with our data. This, on your slide in front of you, this is just a short list of a few places where our district data, both state and local, is reviewed and analyzed. I wanted to just take the opportunity to highlight a few of these. The first one that I'd like to highlight is our building assessment data meetings. This is our 2nd year hosting these meetings, and this is an opportunity for site leaders to partner with our CIAT support staff, and they meet twice a year to discuss building-specific challenges and opportunities, and then make a plan for moving forward. This was a really positive, the entire group, both building leaders, we had really positive feedback from these meetings last year, and we're looking forward to taking them a step further this year. The second area I'd like to highlight is learning teams and QComp. Learning teams are entering year 3 of working together. The power of teachers meeting weekly to discuss student achievement is beyond measure. As we all know, our teams have already started meeting, and Maggie is already getting requests for people to come in and dive into the data through our data warehouse. And we look for further as we look further down fall, we anticipate that will only increase. Last but not least is AGR, our elementary and secondary assessment, grading, and reporting committees will continue with development and implementation of common summative assessments per course. And as I stated a little earlier, our next step with that will be determining how we're going to use that data to improve student achievement. So now that we have had the opportunity to collect that data, how can we use that to move us forward and to move students forward? Overall, our district continues to perform well on state accountability tests. Moving forward, we will use this data, the data that we presented here tonight, along with local assessment data to review curriculum, programming, and student achievement. We look forward to taking a closer look with you at the school board data retreat in December. Thank you for the opportunity to share this data and our next steps. May we answer any questions this evening? Okay, Dan, go ahead.
I was just curious, as you look at these cohorts, diagonally, as the kids move on, is there any way that the data warehouse can break out, for instance, the 4th grade kids in 2014, just those kids, that were here in 2014 that took the test in 2015, because we're a growing district and kids move and come and go. I'd love to see that comparison. This is valuable, but I think the kids that were here both years is more valuable.
Absolutely. The data warehouse can do that, and you're right. It would provide, we do need, for these purposes, we provide data that is October 1st data. And so, yes, the data warehouse does have that capability. And it's something that we've talked about moving forward, to start delineating that, like you said, because we do have so many new students come in throughout the year.
And then is there any value, if I could do one more, with the science test, because they're only every few years, is there any value of looking at the fifth graders and
Looking at 8th grade?
then looking in the 8th grade 3 years later? I know it's a different curriculum, it's elementary, secondary. Is there any value in looking at it that way?
I would struggle with looking at it that way, just because, like you said, the divide of the grade levels with the divide in between. What we would more closely want to look at is our curriculum's alignment with standards, and then how are we meeting students' needs on those assessments, or just with our curriculum and with our standards. So we'd want to look more closely at those specific grade levels, and probably not draw a lot of comparisons between, just given the multiple school years that they have between those assessments.
And also the 5th grade test encompasses what students learn in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The same thing is true for the 8th grade test and the 10th grade test. So that's a little caveat in there, that whereas math and reading, it's 1 year of learning. Science is 3, which is...
Okay.
Other questions? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is title, No Child Left Behind, ESEA funding allocation. Oh,
Good evening again. I'm back.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair Ruel, members of the board, Dr. Stallo. I'm here this evening to present the ESEA allocations for the school district. In short, this is our title funding for Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. In your board packet, it lists the funding allocation for the current year and 5 years prior. I'm here tonight seeking approval to formally receive these funds.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this? So it's looking like we're going up just a tad bit from last year.
Yes. We were, just to clarify, these funds are based on our free and reduced lunch population, and that our free and reduced lunch population did go down from last year to this year. However, I verified, I'm winking at Julie here because I verified my explanation of it before the meeting. The legislature approved a higher per pupil funding unit. So essentially our numbers of students that we received this funding on went down, but the per pupil funding unit, so the amount of money they're giving for each of those students, went up, and therefore we did notice a slight increase in our total allocation. But it does speak to the volatility of this funding.
Okay. Would you mind, I don't recall this, but Title 2A, Improved Teacher and Administrator Quality, is that just based on the number of kids that are in Title 1, or is that a different?
It's also based on our free and reduced lunch population,
okay.
Yes.
All right. Whereas Title 3 is ELL, more
Correct.
specific to that. Okay. All right. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the preliminary allocations as listed?
So moved.
By Todd, second.
I'll second the motion.
By Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. And Julie's up. Student enrollment.
Good evening, Chair Ruel, board members, Dr. Stallo. I'm sorry you weren't able to receive this information before tonight. However, since school just started last week, it was difficult for me to give you any kind of update before tonight's meeting. Especially the first 2 days for the elementary were assessment days, and so therefore we really didn't have good numbers. I do want to talk a little bit about our enrollment. As you can see, I'm kind of going through a little bit just to show you what it looks like. At our elementary level, we have 126 additional students this year, so your question about assessments in one grade to the next is very valid, that we do see quite a bit of growth in the student population per grade level. Our kindergarten this year is our highest that we've ever had here at Prior Lake Savage Area Schools at 573 students. Last year it was 541, so you can see there's quite a bit of growth. But I also wanted, I don't know if I can make this work quite right, but the correlation between kindergarten this year to first grade, you can see we grew 20 students there. And as you go down, you can see where our growth is. We have 34 students from last year's second grade to this year's third grade. So there is some large growth pockets here in our district. And that third grade is definitely one of them. And as we go through 25, so you can see why we have some needs for additional staffing, especially at this elementary level. So we're at currently 3411 for our elementary enrollment, K-5, where last year we ended the year at 3285. We look at our middle school enrollment. There's an additional 70 students at our middle school over last year's numbers. And I should erase this little piece of, I'm surprised it doesn't, I need help with that. I don't know if I know how to do that.
Uh-oh, you got something going.
Oops, no, I really don't know. I know, I should, just leave it alone. If you look at the sixth grade, you can see our growth from sixth grade to seventh grade. The line actually works really well there. That's another large pocket where we're seeing a lot of growth is in that 6th to 7th grade this year. And so therefore, that's the largest growth area that we have in that middle school level. And then if I go to the high school and the ALC, we're looking at 2,657 students at our high school total enrollment, where all of our grade levels are over 600. And this includes our ALC. We have the largest starting ALC numbers this year at 85 at our ALC. So of those 2,657, there's about 85 students there that are at our ALC.
So we actually grew in 11. Well, not 11.
No, not really. From 10th, we lost a few students from 10th to 11th. And again, we did grow from 11 to 12 this year.
That's kind of unique, isn't it? I mean,
It is unique. As you know, students in 11th and 12th grade can come to school or go to school wherever they would like to go to school and graduate from that school. So open enrollment does not apply. And so those students can come to our district at any time in 11th and 12th grade. Oh, and now I really am messed up here. So if we look at, I just want to talk about PSEO one more time. That we did talk about it earlier tonight, but our full-time, we have 45 students going full-time PSEO. As you know, earlier this fall, or I should say summer, late in the summer, we had an agreement, the board signed an agreement with Normandale that we would now pay them $225 per credit for those students. So now we'll count those PSEO students as our own that are going to Normandale. So I will have a separate slide from now on about our PSEO enrollment. But we have 45 full-time, of which students attending college, and 7 of those are going outside of Normandale, some to the U. And then 59 part-time students are going to Normandale, and 3 are going to other colleges in those cities here, for a total of 62. So we have 107 students right now that are attending some sort of post-secondary enrollment option. Then if we go to the year-end projections, here we go. If you add all of those numbers up that I had at the top of the screens for each of those, we have 385 additional students right now over what we had for enrollment at the end of the year last year. So I say subtract out our 45 full-time PSEO students, so that brings us to 340 students. And then typically we lose from the beginning of the school, start of school till October 1, we lose about 50 students. And so we've lost 30. So we didn't know they were coming to school, they've moved, whatever that reason may be. We may or may not lose those additional 20, but I have it out there because that's been our historical average. So I have that 20 out there, and then we also historically lose 70 more students from October 1 through the end of the year. So that leaves us about 250 students. If you were a part of our demographic study committee last year, we had a moderate high growth and a high growth. And that 250 students definitely lands in the high growth area above what we had projected as a moderate high growth. So my budget, a preliminary budget of 203 is a little low this year for our enrollment projected. So as we go through the budget process, the final budget process of the year, we will be talking about these numbers, and as October 1 comes around, we will continue to update them every week because it changes, seems like now, weekly until October 1, and then we move forward from there. So any questions about our enrollment?
Any questions?
Just one quick one, class size.
Class size at the
In the
elementary
elementaries.
level, they are very close to where they were last year, almost right on it. 23.36 is what our elementary average class size is.
We'll get the report then based on the October 1 counts.
Yes,
Okay,
but that's where it stands today.
okay, thanks.
And so, but moving forward, because the way you're going to be budgeting now, you're going to be putting the PSEOs in, right?
Yes, it
I mean,
will
this
be.
is to get us to apples of what we looked
Right.
at last year, but
I'll
moving
be adding
forward.
them in, and they will be in our enrollment projection numbers.
Okay,
And then I'll just have a separate
Yeah.
sheet.
okay. All right, thank you. And then, next up is the preliminary levy certification. And this, I was going to put a couple comments in. Julie just got this information last Wednesday, and she initially wasn't feeling prepared enough in the sense of being able to answer everyone's questions. So, and there's been, going back and forth with the MDE, so she doesn't have probably every answer to every question you have, but I asked her to put this on here because there are some changes coming from what we've done in the last few years, and there's been some changes, and she'll explain those of the way the state's doing things, so which is impacting us. So go ahead, Julie.
So just going to give a brief, and this is very preliminary. I want to make sure that I say that because I've only received one run when the state runs our levy certification. I've just received the original one, and I already know there are mistakes on that. And so I've been working from that, but as they update things and fine tune them, I know there will be changes. So this is just very preliminary, and these numbers will adjust as needed. So the three areas I want to talk about tonight are enrollment growth, of which we just talked about a little bit, our debt service schedule, and because of the new long-term facility maintenance program that we have, there's a termination of our old health and safety funding, and that is affecting our levy certification for this year. And I need you to understand how that's affecting it and how you want to move forward with that. So unlike our cities and our counties, the components that make up our levy are really determined by state legislature. We don't have a lot of ability to just levy because we need to do streets or we need to have fire protection and police protection. Ours is set by legislature, and so we only can levy what they're allowing us to levy for. And a lot of those levies are determined by our pupil units. So the calculations based on those levy, a lot of time there are levy and aid components. So if you levy something, you'll receive aid for that as well. So the two together equal your total funding stream for that component. So capital, operating capital is a great example of that. where if you under levy or you don't levy the total amount for your capital, they will also reduce the amount of aid that you receive. So the two work hand in hand. And so a lot of those things are based on our pupil units. So as we are a growing district, a lot of those things will continue to rise. And the reason that happens is they also realize that your valuation in your district is growing. So some of those things kind of work hand in hand as well. So some examples are achievement and integration levy is increasing because of our pupil units this year. Operating capital I talked about, the local optional aid, of course our voter approved levy referendum. Because we have more students, we receive more dollars for that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about our debt service because this is the other piece of that, is that we have 8 bonds. When we were going through a growth spurt, we have several bonds for the high school and our elementary schools that make up our debt service schedule. And as we are a growing district again, what happens is those schedules anticipate that we will continue to grow in our valuation so they will add more money to our debt service schedule. And this is the year that that is happening. And that amount is increasing by about $870,000 on our levy certification this year. And then I want to talk a little bit about the health and safety. And due to that implementation of that long-term facility maintenance program for this year, it's just implemented at this last legislative session, now it terminates that health and safety funding program that we've had in the past. Well, because we've had such big projects in health and safety, typically what health and safety does is you levy for it, you anticipate, you budget for it, you spend the money. So if we levy for it now, we would spend the money next year, but actually it's the following year that we actually receive the money. So you're always this behind a little bit. Well, we got caught in that because we've had these big projects. Well, now they're ending that funding. Well, we still have about $1.14 million of projects that we haven't levied for yet. So what they're saying is you have the opportunity to levy for that right now. And that's a big chunk of money for us to levy. So I've asked, and they've said that we could spread that out over 3 years. So instead of it being that $1,139,000, it would be $390,000 over 3 years. So I've had many conversations with the people at the Department of Education about this and hoping that they will give us the opportunity to levy over 3 years without having to under-levy. When you under-levy, that means that instead of at the end of September, we say we'll just levy the maximum. We actually have to say how much we're going to levy, not only in health and safety, but in every area of our levy certification, which is quite lengthy. And I would rather not do that. So I'm asking them, can they give us 2 options? And we'll see if they allow that to happen or not, so that we can still levy the max using the one option of spreading it out over 3 years. Any questions about that? It's an interesting concept. So it's just different, and it's new, and it's an unintended consequence, I believe, of the long-term facility maintenance implementation.
But I mean, there wasn't really any warning to this happening.
I heard about it I saw it on our levy certification on Wednesday. I had a discussion with a couple of people at the Department of Ed at the levy certification meeting, and on Friday afternoon, I got the bad news that we had to levy all of it in 1 year. So it's been this a little bit of back and forth, how that will work.
Well, and there has to be other districts in the same boat.
I believe so, but I think probably because we just went through this big push of working through our health and safety, we're probably one of the districts that
is affected by it the most.
Affected the most.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
So can you talk about the timeline then for us as far as the levy?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, she's
in
gonna
my
be there.
next couple slides, I'll kind of go through
Okay.
that. So what can we do? What can we do to help our levy certification out a little bit? One is we can reduce our OPEB levy. Right now it's out there at about $375,000, so I could put that to 0 for a year, which would lower our levy certification so that we wouldn't have, it'd help us a little bit. Also, the other option, which I've already requested to see if they would allow it, which I believe they will, to reduce, ask for an additional reduction in our debt excess levy. Now, what does that mean? We have to, so our 8 bonds that we have for our debt service, we have to levy 105% of that to our taxpayers. In case someone doesn't pay their taxes, we have money to pay our full bonds, so 105%. Right now, that's about $655,000, is that 5%. We have $1.4 million in our fund balance for debt service. So I would reduce it. They already have a reduction out there for us of about $260,000. I'm asking for an additional $500,000. So it gets us really close to that true 5%. So in essence, what we're doing is giving back to our taxpayers the money that we've collected over and above what is required. So that's what we're doing with that. And then I have a couple other levies that I can reduce and finagle for about $40,000. And there's not a lot of room there. And then, of course, spreading that health and safety levy out over the 3 years is our other option. So what I've done is showed you what our levy has looked like the past few years. And you can see back in 2009 and 10, our levy was a little over $25 million, $25.5. And really over the several years, it really has gone down a little bit and a little bit up. But even last year, we're still at that $25,695. So it's stayed pretty even. So our 2 options, the first one, the first green line is looking, that's what it looks like if we were to do all those options that I stated, reduce the OPEB and do all those types of things. And it's the 3-year health and safety option. So it's it's $26 million. It goes up a little over $1 million. And the other option is if we were to just pay the full or levy for the full health and safety
In 1 year.
in 1 year. So it's $27 million. So it goes up, 1.75 million. What does that look like percentage-wise? You can see those decreases in those few years. Last year, our levy went up 1.6%. It would be 3.99 if we were to do the 3-year option, and then 6.9 with the 1-year option. So you can see we have done a really good job over the last several years of keeping our levy very low, very stable. But with our growth and everything that's happening in our district, it's just not possible at this time.
And I know, because my first question is what's the impact to the taxpayer individually? And I know you're getting that information. We're waiting on Scott County on that. Then we'll have it later this week. But, the tax base is also broadening.
The tax base, and I did look at our tax base,
Right.
and that's pretty stable too. It's gone up to 36%. Last year it was at 32%, and so we are right in that. We did decrease our taxes last year. When our tax base has gone up every year. Usually that's because of inflation or growth. So in your district, and last year with such a decline from 36 to 32, most likely it was a little of both. A lot of inflation because finally the economy turned around, and also we really started to see a lot of growth in our district. So now, again, if our tax base continues to do that, we'll see that continue to be steady or declining.
And like this type of impact won't have as big of an
Right,
impact
because
as you
our
think.
valuation has
Right.
increased in our districts, we have more property to spread our levy across.
Well, as we know, there's more families, obviously, who are building and homes is adding to the tax base, so
Correct.
yeah.
So these are things that for you as a board to kind of think about and discuss, and feel free to contact me and we can talk about them or what our options are. I will continue to work with the Department of Education to see what our options are for.
Yeah, so let's talk timeline, just because I think what was originally talked about was that, because we have the deadline of October 1st, correct, to get it to the county?
September 30th, yes.
September 30th. So our next board study session that we'd open up to approve an amount or whatever for the preliminary levy. I just want to make sure that as board members, we've had the time to talk and ask those questions, and Julie's had the time to get the answers that we need, which that will be happening in this week and the next week. But it does kind of butt right up to that date. And so I guess I'm looking for guidance from you as to what you guys are feeling comfortable, or what you want to do as far as discussion on it and that.
It'd be nice to possibly have another study session on the 21st, but if we don't have the data, there's not the urgency to get that.
And I can't guarantee, I may not know until Monday, it's just that I can work through it and see what I can get, but I would hate for you to have a work session and information isn't available. It is a short turnaround, it always has been, it's one of those, and it is a preliminary levy. So you could certainly levy the max and say, well, we'll continue to look at it, and then levy something less than that for the final levy in December.
But if we do that,
Yes.
that's on their tax statement.
It shows on their tax statement, but it wouldn't be taxed. So there's advantages and disadvantages to all of that. So you're right, it would show up.
I mean, I personally want to have as much information as we can to give taxpayers an idea. It's the reason why you put that notice in the mail, is to give them an idea of what it is.
Right,
So
exactly.
I don't know about necessarily going to the max. I guess I would feel more comfortable being able to have more discussion once we find out some of these impacts on the individual taxpayer. But I mean, as far as a date, I don't know. Does anybody have any suggestions?
If we could just commit, and maybe tell me if this is too late, if we can just commit to discussing this to the satisfaction of the 7 of us on the 28th, no matter how long that takes.
Right.
And if something from the work session gets pushed back, or we are a little later than we typically are, that's just, tough hop.
Well, and I hopefully will know something, and if there's something that looks odd or I would want to have a discussion about, I certainly could, send out an email blast or something.
Right, and I think we should take the opportunity, too, to send questions to Julie so that she can be prepared for that date. So that is everyone feeling comfortable with that? I mean, as far as timing-wise? Does that seem okay?
Is starting early on the 28th an option as well?
Well, I think we're starting at 6. You guys tell me what time, if it wants to be earlier than that. I can get there earlier, but I don't know about the rest of you.
Earlier is fine. I don't know about the rest of everyone else. Just remember, we can't really have discussions outside, in my understanding.
Oh, you're right. I mean, that's the point
Obviously.
of having it, right. So 5 o'clock, do everyone want to do 5 o'clock? Is that what we're saying? Start early? Okay, I think we're going to start early.
And my other thing would be if you have suggestions for me or an idea of which way you would prefer me to continue to work towards, I'd certainly would do that as well.
Both options should probably be on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I'd like to know more about the OPEB and basically how much of that we're spending out, because that is I don't totally understand that, how much comes out each time, because it seems...
What we levy for in OPEB is the max that we can levy for is the max that we pay out the prior year. So $375,000 was what we paid last year for retirees, health, life, dental benefits. And so that's the max that we can levy. If we don't levy that, it just means that we'll reduce our OPEB funding. We have $4 million in that account, so that $375,000 would not be a huge hit to that for 1 year.
But that's like a 1-year thing. I think that's nothing that we would want to continue.
We would not
for
want
3
to
years.
continue that, but I don't have,
Right.
I don't see a real issue with not levying for OPEB for 1 year.
Right. And I think just for, information, obviously, I know you're getting it, but the information to the individual homeowner, in
Right.
the average home, I think it will be important for
And
us
I
to
will
know.
have that. I usually give a full report to the board
Right.
with all of that information, and I just wasn't able to pull all of that together, and plus with it just being the original run, it's just there's so many errors. I just didn't feel comfortable throwing those numbers out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Did you say that there's information to be getting next Monday, potentially, you said?
Well, I try to work on this every day, and so it depends on when they run the updated reports, the Department of Ed, and I look at those and evaluate them to see if there's continues to be issues or if they've corrected my problems that I have, and then I just continue to work on that until it's correct. So I could have information. It just depends on if, what kind of information I get from the department and how quickly they run their reports.
Yeah, and I think we want to try to have as much information as we can. So I think just to make the best decision, we should wait the longest if everyone feels comfortable with that. So
The other option that the board always has is the ability to delay by 7 days. We can ask the county if they would extend our approval date for 7 days after September 30th. And so we could also do that. If we don't feel comfortable, I could ask the county if they'd be willing to do that.
is that something that we can do that night of the 28th, or can we have to do
I
it before?
would definitely let them know beforehand because they have to approve it. And so I would want to let them know and they would say yes or no that we could do that.
I mean, are you feeling that you're going to have enough time to get the information by the 28th?
I do feel like we will have enough time.
Okay.
But I could definitely contact the Scott County as well, and for them to be aware.
I'd feel good about asking for the extra 7 days, but not using it.
Okay. All right. And if we get it done before, we get it done before?
That'd be great.
Okay. All right, so we're going to meet 5 o'clock on the 28th on this. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up is me talking for a long time, I think, right? All right, is Constitution Week. No?
No, you're not going to talk for long.
No, I'm not going to talk for that long. Okay. All right. Okay, this is going to be Constitution Week, the week of September 14th to the 18th in the district. And here is the proclamation. Whereas September 17th, 2015 marks the 228th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and its anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, now therefore we, the School Board of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, do hereby proclaim September 14th through the 18th, 2015 to be Constitution Week within the Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. I urge all citizens to join me in recognizing Constitution Week to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787. So, thank you. That's pretty exciting. I like Constitution. All right. Next up is the Columbus Day resolution. Okay, so this is for us having an official meeting, correct? Okay. Do I have to read this? Is that the yellow? The yellow part, okay. The resolution relating to Columbus Day, October 12th, 2015. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent ISD 719, State of Minnesota, as following, that Columbus Day, October 12th, 2015, not to be considered a holiday, and that the regular meeting of the School Board of ISD 719 can be held and the business conducted as usual. And so I need a board member to motion that, correct? Motion that and second.
So moved.
By Melissa. And second?
Second.
On Chad.
I'll second.
All right, Chad. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
sorry. I knew it before it was coming out. It's a roll call.
Aye.
And Chad.
Aye.
Ken. Dan.
Aye.
Ty. Aye. Rich.
Aye.
Yep, Melissa.
Aye.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Columbus. So there we are. We're doing business. Okay, so next up is policy, which, do we have anything? No policy. I think we're meeting this week, correct?
Correct.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Administrative reports. Dr. Stallo.
Good evening, board members. I've decided to let student and staff pictures, help demonstrate, we don't need enrollment again, help demonstrate my board report this evening. It's my eyesight. So, Our district mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global society. And every single day, our collective work is focused on that mission. As a matter of fact, at our all-district welcome back, we had several student members and cheerleaders in the band who helped us rally around our district mission because we know the importance of all adults living the mission every single day so that we can help live it out for students as well. So the big news, of course, is that we just finished last week, our first week of school. We opened the week with 7,850 students strong in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. I was in every building in the district throughout the week and saw firsthand very eager students and staff ready to kick off and learn as they began the year. Every school found ways of making the first day of school special and exciting for the students. There are dozens of examples on our district's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter accounts. I'm sure that parents and neighbors and community members heard lots of stories about the opening week last week. As you know, this year we expanded our one-to-one initiative, putting iPads in the hands of every student grades 8 through 12. To accommodate this increase in devices and internet use, we have nearly doubled the number of access points at our high school and at both middle schools. We've upgraded our internet service, and we've also upgraded our access point model to a more robust version so that we can handle more connections per device. As you can imagine, we saw a great deal of traffic on our system the first week of school, and we were able to accommodate all students and staff with few interruptions. Thank you to Marcus Velazzo and his team for making the proactive measures needed to create a seamless online learning environment for our students. Our bus transportation also went smoothly the first week, especially when you consider that we transport 6,300 students a day, and that's including St. Mike's students. Even with our enrollment growth, we have not had to add any buses this year. Our bus association and transportation department did a great job of careful planning over the summer months to keep buses and the capacity in check. Our highest ridership, as you might guess, is in the first week of school, and then it begins to decline a bit. We do make plans in the event so that buses get overcrowded by having extra buses on standby the first few weeks of school, but none of that was needed last week. Still, in a few cases, we've already made adjustments to address some slight capacity issues, and we'll continue to watch that and make adjustments as they're needed. Students across the district are noticing several positive changes to our school meal program, Laker Marketplace. Edgewood students used to go to Westwood for school meals. This year, breakfast and lunch is being served at Edgewood for Loyola Delaga and Circle of Friends students. This saves about 20 minutes of instructional time by keeping the students in their site. 110 students were fed on the first day. And remember, these students are very young. This has been a terrific partnership with the Westwood kitchen staff. Last week, we fed an average of 2,300 students per day at the high school. Some of the favorite options so far have been the salad bar and the deli station. 593 students ate the salad bar last Thursday. So it's great to see the students switching to healthier choices all on their own. There's new flat screen monitors that have been installed at the high school so that students are able to see the food options and the prices clearly before they get into the line, which has helped since the servery is very crowded. High school is also providing more build-your-own options, which of course our students like. New breakfast carts were used to serve kindergartens in the classroom, is already proving to be an improved model since students can now choose what they want and what they don't want. This is also helping students to be a little bit more independent. We're reducing food waste, and we are in compliance with regulation. If you stop by any of our schools, you will see child nutrition staff showing off their new uniforms. They've received many compliments on how professional they look. Finally, our new app, NutriSlice, is also being well received. The app features menus and nutritional information And it also contains a chance for our customers to give us feedback. We can use that information and make decisions and changes immediately about menu changes. We've also received many positive comments from parents who can now view allergens at the click of a mouse, and the health service offices also are able to help with dietary needs. So part of what makes our schools great is that we have a strong history of working relationships with our cities, and we continue to foster that this evening with a joint meeting between the Prior Lake City Council and the Prior Lake Savage School Board. Our purpose in coming together in this joint meeting annually is to discuss any city and district programs and projects and to ensure that we are well informed in order to collaborate and best serve our families, students, and communities. We want to thank Mayor Hedberg and City Manager Frank Boyles, the council members, and the Prior Lake City staff members for meeting tonight and continuing to forge a positive relationship. So in closing, it has been a very positive first few days of school. We look forward, since this is the first Monday of the school year, we look forward to a full week in all of our early childhood through 12th grade programs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other administrative reports? No? Any board reports? Maddie? Anything exciting you want to tell us about the first week of
We're
school?
just planning homecoming right now, so
Okay.
that's pretty
That's
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
it's going well, yeah.
Do you have a theme?
Yeah, our theme is There's No Place Like Homecoming. So, yeah, it'll be fun to decorate. Yeah.
All right.
Toto.
Yeah.
All right. Any school board committee reports or anything like that? Anybody? Okay. All right, future events. We have a joint meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 here at the DSC with the Laker Education Foundation. And I know quite a few of us are going, I think. And then Constitution Day, which we just proclaimed, is September 17th. Fall Community Fest, always a big highlight, on September 21st. I believe it's 6 to 8:30 at the high school. And then, as we talked about, we will be having a board study session at 5 o'clock. That's a little bit of a change here at the DSC on the 28th. And with that, I think I'm looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. By Ben, second. Come on, guys.
So moved.
By Rich. Everybody wants to stay here a little longer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that passes.